He matched my walking pace for 3 weeks before he tried my front door. I didn't clock it as horror at first. Just one more shitty thing about living in the city when you're tired and female and trying to get home without some guy turning you into his little side quest. Rainy city, same bus stop every night. I worked late shift, got off around 10:30, zombie walked through the same 3 blocks like muscle memory. First time I noticed him, he held his umbrella a little too low, so I couldn't see his face, only his mouth. Just a line of lips, jaw, stubble, the way his chin moved when he swallowed. He stood just behind my shoulder, never beside. Too close for a random stranger, not close enough to scream about. That perfect shitty middle distance guys use when they want you to feel them without giving you anything concrete to point at. I told myself I was overreacting. I do that a lot. I ran safety scripts in my head like a broken record. Keys between my fingers, phone in my pocket already on the emergency screen, earbuds out. There were other people there. Office guys in damp coats, 2 girls who always laughed too loud, a mom with a stroller. Normal, boring. But every night, I'd step under the shelter and feel that umbrella shadow slide in behind me, just off to the left, just inside my personal space. Next week, he started coincidentally getting off at my stop. I noticed because no one got off at my stop, not at that time, not in that weather. It's a stretch of shitty storefronts and closed shutters, and one bar that always smells like piss and fryer oil. He'd step down right after me, always a few steps behind, always on the same side of the street. If I crossed, he crossed. If I slowed to tie my shoe, he slowed to check his phone. It was like walking with a shadow that hadn't gotten the memo about personal boundaries. I tried all the rationalizations. Maybe he lives nearby. Maybe we just work similar hours. Maybe I'm inventing patterns because my brain likes patterns, even scary ones. Then I caught him in a shop window reflection. Umbrella still low, head tilted down, but his body angled a little toward me, mirroring my pace exactly, heel to toe. Not just following the same route, following me. The next few days I played games with him. Petty little experiments. I stopped to stare into a closed bakery window like I'd lost something. He stopped too, just beyond arm's reach, and pretended to scroll. I turned around like I'd forgotten something on the bus and walked back toward the stop. He turned into the doorway of a dark store and pretended to read a paper notice tape there. No bus schedule, no menu. Just a printer page with the words, "Under construction." He stared at it like it was Shakespeare. I changed routes. Left work early one night. Left late the next. Took a completely different line once. Spent an extra 20 minutes on the train just to see. My stomach twisted the whole time, because if he still showed up, that would mean I wasn't crazy, which somehow felt worse than being crazy. And yeah, he still appeared 2 blocks from my place, umbrella down now, staring straight ahead like I didn't exist. Didn't look at me, didn't speed up, just dropped into my orbit like gravity. That's when the anger finally beat the fear. Not because I felt safe, but because I was so fucking tired of managing this silent little war alone. No one sees it, you know? You tell a coworker and they go, maybe it's just a guy from the neighborhood. You tell your mom and she tells you to be careful, like you haven't been carefully calculating every step since puberty. So I finally spun around in the middle of the sidewalk and told him to fuck off and stop following me. My voice came out harsher than I expected, this cracked, raw thing. For a second, he actually froze like I'd hit pause on him. Then he shrugged, shoulders barely moving under his dark coat, and said it was a public sidewalk, like he'd practiced that line. Then he walked past, but his eyes flicked to my keys when I pulled them out. Just one quick glance down, up, gone. It felt like he'd reached out and touched my door through me. I stood there in the rain, heart pounding, watching him keep walking. Part of me wanted to follow him, see where he went, film him, post him, blast his face everywhere. Another part of me wanted to vanish into my apartment and pretend none of it ever happened. I picked the second part. Fear wins more often than pride. That night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to the soft rattle of my doorknob. It didn't sound like in movies. No big bang, no dramatic shaking. Just this gentle metal tick like someone trying different grips. Not pounding, Careful testing turns. My body went cold fast, like my blood dropped in my feet. I lay there and listened to the way the knob moved, slow, then still, then slow again like he was feeling out the lock. Then 3 precise knocks, spaced out, and his voice, calm as weather. "You got home safe." That's good. Not loud, not threatening, just conversational, like he was finishing a thought we'd both been having. I didn't move. I didn't scream. I turned into this tiny animal under the covers, breathing shallow. My phone was on a nightstand, but my arm felt made of stone. I kept replaying his words in my head. "You got home safe." That's good. He tracked me all the way, memorized the door, the floor, the timing. Walked up to my home like he'd earned it. I called 911 whispering into my pillow, scared even the dispatcher might somehow leak sound into the hallway. I told them there was a man at my door who had been stalking me for weeks. I heard myself ramble. Umbrella, bus, sidewalk, keys, the line about public sidewalk. It all sounded like nothing when I stacked it together, like I was making shapes out of clouds. By the time they arrived, he was gone, of course. They walked the hallway, checked the lobby camera, made sympathetic faces. No forced entry, no raised voices. Just me in an oversized t-shirt, shaking, trying not to sound hysterical. One cop suggested I maybe get a boyfriend to walk you home, with that little smirk that made me want to break his nose. Another said to call again if he actually attempted entry. As if testing the lock at 2 a.m. with a fucking monologue through my door doesn't count. They left me with a thin little report number and the kind of look people give you when they've already decided to forget you. I didn't sleep after that. I stacked furniture in front of the door, sat on the floor with my back against it until sunrise, fingers digging into my phone. I scrolled through local subs, typed out a post 3 times and deleted it. I didn't want to be the crazy girl with the umbrella guy story. I kept thinking, what if I'm wrong and I ruin some dude's life because he walks fast and likes that route? Then I'd hear his voice again in my head, soft as fuck, "You got home safe," and my stomach would twist. A week later, someone on the city sub posted about a polite man with an umbrella waiting outside their building at night, saying he'd walked a friend home here before. I stared at the post until my eyes burned. Different neighborhood, different building, same umbrella description, same language. Polite, helpful, just wanted to make sure I got inside okay. Comment split the usual way. Half, "What the fuck, call the cops," and half, "You're overreacting, he sounds sweet." Someone joked about a guardian angel. I sat there at my kitchen table, phone in my hand, and realized I wasn't special. I wasn't his one obsession. I was just one in a line, a routine, a route. He'd practiced that voice and those words and that distance. He knew exactly how close to get before the law cared, exactly how much to say before you couldn't quote it as a threat. He didn't need a break-in. The fear did that work for him. To the fucker who thinks repetition makes women stop noticing you. I moved, I changed stops, and if I ever see that umbrella again, I'm crossing the street with a camera in my hand, not my keys. Let's not meet. I found my manager's employee birthdays spreadsheet and realized it was a timeline for when we were most vulnerable. That's not an exaggeration. It was laid out like an attack plan, just buried under balloons and cupcakes. He's the cheerful type, balloons, cupcakes, team, family, bullshit. HR loves him. He remembers everyone's birthday without calendar reminders. Or so I thought. He does that fake, caring dad, routine with everyone. Hand on your shoulder, big laugh, calls you kiddo, even if you're 30. Always the first to say, "Come on, one drink won't kill you." I used to think he was just annoying. Too friendly. That kind of guy. I even defended him when people said he gave them the creeps. I'd say, he's just trying too hard. I thought I was careful. I thought I knew how to handle drunk coworkers and push him in at bars. I didn't think I had to watch my manager inside the office. One late night, I stayed back finishing reports and used his desk to print. My login wouldn't work on the printer. His was already set up, so I slid into his chair like everyone does. His personal laptop sat docked, lid half closed. I nudged the mouse without thinking. Screen lit up. No password, just his desktop. Right in the middle was an Excel file called care_tracker.xlsx. Ugly green icon, opened recently. I told myself I was just checking if it was a printer setting thing, but my hand moved on its own. I double-clicked. Columns weren't just names and dates. They read, name, BDAY, usual drink, lives alone, sir, typical Uber ETA, after party, notes, clean headers, frozen top row, filters on everything. That wasn't a quick list. That was a project. My eyes went straight to my name. Under my row, 2 glasses wine equals slurred, walks home, doesn't always lock back entrance. I read it 3 times. My chest went hot and then ice cold. I've never told anyone about the back entrance thing. Twice I got halfway up my apartment stairs, panicked, walked back down to check the lock. I never mentioned it at work. So how the fuck did that land in a spreadsheet? I scrolled. Under another woman's. Couch sleeper, door prop for smokers. I remembered her telling that story at happy hour, laughing about how her roommates always left the door open. He'd stood there, nodding, acting concerned. Next to a guy's name, girlfriend picks up, not ideal. Not ideal for what? For who? I scroll more. Every office happy hour, every late event, he logged who got drunkest, who cried, who needed a ride. There were tabs by year. Notes like tequila equals hands why, mixes meds plus wine, loses phone by 11 p.m. Some cells had red highlights, said nobody waiting at home. Walks from Uber alone, keys in outside pocket. It felt like I was reading a manual on how to pick someone off. Diva track logistics. Uber 6 to 8 minutes average, lives 10-minute walk from bar, back alley shortcut, elevator key card, sometimes left downstairs. Tiny details that only matter if you're planning to meet someone at their weakest point. I didn't breathe. I just scrolled and scrolled. One row said, new hire, quiet, 3 beers equals blackout, lives alone, 4th floor, no pets. Another, cries when drunk, tells childhood trauma, doesn't remember next day. The note cell on that one had 2 comments with timestamps after midnight. He'd stayed sober enough to type, while everyone else slipped. That's when he walked in. I saw his reflection in the screen before I heard him. For a second, his face changed. No smile, no fun boss. Just this flat, dead look like a mask fell off. Then he snapped it back on and joked that I'd found his little safety project. My throat closed. I could barely get words out. I pointed at lives alone and not ideal and said, what is this? My voice shook and pissed me off because I wanted to sound angry, not scared. He leaned over my shoulder, way too close, and said it was for planning safe rides. Said he cared and didn't want anyone getting hurt. He tapped the red cells and said those were flags for people he should keep an eye on. He made it sound noble, heroic. I wanted to shove the laptop off the desk. I asked why it said, not ideal, next to someone whose girlfriend picked him up. He laughed it off, said, not ideal for coordinating rides, obviously. He made me feel crazy for even asking. But his eyes kept flicking to the screen, then to my hands on the keyboard, like he was calculating how fast I could send this to someone. He went to the kitchen to grab a water. The second he left the doorway, I moved. I yanked Open Outlook, attached the file, and forwarded the file to my personal email and HR before he could shut it. My fingers stumbled over the keys. I watched that little progress bar like it was a bomb. As soon as it sent, I closed everything, yanked the dock cable out, and slid away from his desk like it burned. On the walk home, every set of footsteps behind me made me flinch. I locked both my doors, shoved a chair under the handle, and stared at my inbox until HR's auto-reply hit. We've received your concern and will review. No emotion, just corporate templated bullshit. They call me in 2 days later. 2 HR reps, fake smiles, a printout of the file in a discrete folder like we were discussing my benefits. They told me they'd spoken to him. They said he'd framed it as a clumsy attempt to track who might need help getting home safe. They said he admitted it was overkill, but well-intentioned. Then they turned it on me. They reminded me not to access private documents or personal devices. They used the phrase breach of trust. I sat there listening to them defend the guy who tracked, who lived alone, and who locked their fucking doors. I asked them if they didn't see how sick it was. How he'd marked not ideal next to a guy whose girlfriend always picked him up. How he'd prioritized people with nobody waiting at home. They said there was no evidence he'd acted on anything. No complaints, no incidents. Just uncomfortable feelings and interpretation. They told me they'd asked him to delete the file and attend sensitivity training. That was it. After that, they made us all sit through a safe celebration session. He ran it. I watched him stand there with his stupid slide deck, talking about pacing your drinks and using the buddy system. People laughed, said things like, he really cares about us. I wanted to scream. He still organizes drinks, still suggests who looks like they need to blow off steam. I watch him now, who he stands next to at the bar, whose glass he tops up without asking, who he steers toward the corner booth. I see the pattern because I've seen the sheet. A new girl joined last month. Lives alone, no car. I heard it come out of her mouth at lunch, just casual small talk. I saw his eyes flick up from his salad, lock on, then soften like he was just being friendly. Later that week, he told her she earned a big night out after her first big project. I felt my heart rate spike. I told her I was going too, even though I'd planned to go home. Nothing has happened that anyone will put on paper. No clear assault, no police report, just blurry nights, missing chunks of memory, people who say, man, I got so wasted I don't remember getting home, and then laugh it off. I hear that, and I think of those timestamps in his comments. 1:32 am 2:04 am. Called Uber, walked her to door, stayed until lights off. Little notes no one ever sees. I change my route home. I double-check every lock now. I stop staying late when I know he's around. People call me paranoid. Maybe I am, but I've seen the way he looks at that bar door when someone stumbles out alone, like he's checking something off a list. I deleted the copy of the file from my personal email after a while because just seeing the subject line made me shake. But it's memorized anyway. Not the exact words, but the logic. Who matters? Who doesn't? Who he thinks will be believed if something goes wrong, and who won't. So yeah, HR handled it. The file is gone. He did his little training. We all nodded through it. And he still runs every birthday, every happy hour, every team bonding night. People still trust him to walk them to their Uber, to wait with them by the curb, to make sure they get home safe. Nothing has happened that anyone will put on paper. But every time he raises a glass and insists on one more round, I see that red highlight next to my name like a countdown he's still updating. I only bought the box fan, so I couldn't hear the noises. Ended up proving I wasn't imagining them. The apartment was a half-basement, half-dungeon type deal, the kind you take when you're broke and tired of roommates. Brick building, laundry room down the hall, one tiny window level with the sidewalk, so all I saw were ankles and dog piss. I told myself it was cozy when I signed the lease. Really, it just felt like a storage unit they threw a mattress into. First night there, I lay on the futon staring at the exposed pipes and listening to the building settle. Around midnight, I heard footsteps overhead. Normal. Someone in the apartment above, walking to the kitchen, crossing the living room, whatever. But then, maybe 10 minutes later, I heard them under me. That shouldn't have been possible. Slow scraping, like someone dragged fingers along concrete directly under my bed. Not loud, not dramatic, just this dry, deliberate friction that ran across the floor and stopped right under my chest. I froze. I held my breath, so long my lungs burned. Then I laughed out loud just to break the tension and said, "Pipes." Old building, even though it didn't sound like pipes and definitely didn't sound old. It sounded like someone who knew I was listening and wanted to see what I'd do. Next morning, my keys weren't on the hook by the door. I always hang them there. I'm obsessive about it because I've locked myself out before. They sat on the counter by the sink instead, neatly placed, not dropped. I stared at them for a full minute, tried to remember if I'd done it half asleep. I decided, yeah, sure, I must have. New place, new habits, whatever. Then it kept happening. My phone charger lay coiled on the floor instead of plugged in beside my bed. My deodorant turned so the label faced backward. The bathroom light switch flipped down when I knew I'd left it up. Nothing huge, nothing call the cops level, just wrong. Just enough to make me sound crazy if I complained. After a few days of that, I stopped trusting my own memory. I took pictures before work, keys on hook, charger in wall, shoes by the door, just so I could check later. I'd come back and something would be off by an inch or two, and I'd scroll through my phone and feel my stomach drop because the photos proved it. I wanted so badly to catch myself in a mistake, and I couldn't. Sleep went to shit fast. Every time I started to drift, I'd hear the soft click of my bathroom door nudging its frame, like someone pushed it with the back of their hand and let it swing almost shut. I'd get up, flick on the light, stare into that tiny bathroom like it owed me an explanation. Nothing. I tried wedging a towel under the door. It still clicked. I tried telling myself it was air pressure from the vents. I don't even know if that's a real thing or some bullshit I made up to calm down. By day, 5 my eyes felt like sandpaper. I'd sit at my desk at work, jump whenever someone walked behind me, mainline coffee, and lie to people when they asked if I liked the new place. I kept saying, yeah, it's fine, just noisy, while my brain replayed that scraping under the floor. I bought the box fan after I snapped at my manager over nothing and realized I couldn't keep going like that. I went to the cheapest store I could find, grabbed the loudest plastic piece of crap they had, and lugged it home like it was medicine. I sat at the foot of the bed, pointed it at my face, and cranked it to max. The blades roared, filled every gap in the air. The noises faded behind that steady rush. For the first time all week, I slept more than 3 hours in a row. Of course, my brain found a way to ruin that too. I woke up at 3 a.m. convinced I'd heard something under the fan, like a voice trying to push through static, but when I sat up, the only thing I heard was wind and my own pulse in my ears. I started blasting white noise every night anyway, because apparently I hate myself quiet. Silence meant I might hear something real. Noise meant I could pretend it was all in my head. One afternoon, I left in a rush and forgot to turn the fan off. I remember because I looked at it, thought I should turn that, and then my phone buzzed with a text from my boss asking where a file was. I grabbed my bag, swore, and ran out. I locked the door, tugged the handle twice, checked my keys. No hesitation. No, maybe I didn't. I know I left that fan roaring. When I came back, the apartment felt off. I know how that sounds, but it's the only way to put it. The air felt heavier and colder, like somebody had opened a window I didn't have. The faint smell of my detergent was mixed with something else, stale sweat, maybe, or somebody else's shampoo. I dropped my bag and stood there listening. The fan didn't run. The silence sat on my eardrums like a weight. My bedspread had a new wrinkle near the pillow, a deep dent like a knee or a hand had sunk there and stayed a while. The rest of the blanket lay perfectly flat. It was the kind of mark you don't get from tossing a bag or bumping into it. It looked like someone knelt on my bed and leaned in. I walked around it like it was a body. I checked the fan-out habit. The timer dial sat exactly between numbers, balanced in that tiny dead zone. I never used the timer. I always twist it to on until it hits the stop. That's my thing, all or nothing. Seeing it there, in between, felt like seeing my own handwriting in the wrong color pen. Something in my brain snapped into place. All the little wrong things lined up. The keys, the charger, the door clicks, my sudden forgetfulness. I wasn't clumsy. I wasn't tired. Someone was fucking with me. I went upstairs to the landlord's office and told her my fan broke and kept shutting off. I acted casual, like I just wanted maintenance to check the outlet. I asked if maybe the power down there was glitchy or tied to some timer. My voice shook. I tried to hide it behind a fake laugh. She frowned, tapped something on her computer, and said, "Nobody should be in your unit during the day. The only key is at the front desk." Then she stopped, looked at me a little too long, and added, very slowly, "At least it should be." We walked to the front desk together. The key box hung behind a receptionist, rows of little numbered tags on hooks. The girl at the desk stepped aside like she wanted no part of whatever was about to happen. My landlord ran her finger along the row, calling out apartment numbers under her breath. When she got to mine, her hand just stopped. My tag slot was empty. I felt my knees go weak like in a cliche, but it actually happens. She turned to the receptionist and snapped, "Who had key 3B?" The girl stammered something useless about never touching the keys. They argued in front of me, throwing blame back and forth, while the only thing I could hear was that scraping under my bed and the soft click of my bathroom door. They pulled up the security footage from the hall outside my unit. Tiny back office, stale coffee smell, old monitor. My landlord scrubbed through the morning. There I was, leaving in a hurry, bag on my shoulder, fan roaring in my memory. 15 minutes later, a man in a dark hoodie walked into frame. Hood up, head down like he knew exactly where the camera was and how to give it nothing. He went straight to my door. No hesitation, no fumbling, no tools. Hands in his pockets, casual as hell. The door opened. He slipped inside like he'd done it 100 times. He stayed 20 minutes. We watched the timestamp crawl. I tried to imagine what he did in there while the numbers rolled forward. Standing in the middle of my living room, sniffing the air, touching my dishes, sitting on my bed with his knee by my pillow, leaning close enough to see the loose strands of my hair. At one point, my landlord hit pause and said, "He never comes out with anything." Like that was supposed to make me feel better. He never took anything. That was the worst part. Every time he came, and there were other clips, different days, different times, he just turned the fan off and moved one or two things by inches. Walked with his hands in his pockets, shoulders loose, utterly at home. Like he wanted to feel how close he could get without waking me when I slept there. Like the missing loot was the point. I was the thing he collected. The cops showed up, watched the same footage, and shrugged. They changed my locks, took a statement, and gave me the usual lines. "We'll keep an eye on it. Could be a former employee. He hasn't hurt you." One of them actually said, "It's more creepy than dangerous," like that was supposed to calm me down. I wanted to scream at him that someone kneeling on your bed while you drool on the pillow is pretty fucking dangerous. I moved anyway. I packed everything in one night, tossing clothes into trash bags, yanking art off the walls so hard the frames cracked. Every sound made me jump. Pipes, footsteps, a car door outside. I kept imagining a key sliding in the lock. I just watched them change. The fan shutting off downstairs while I stood upstairs arguing about my deposit. Now I'm somewhere else, higher floor, more windows, more light. Doesn't matter. I don't own a box fan anymore. I don't play white noise. I lie there and listen to every creak, every car, every neighbor's toilet flush. I catalog each sound, name it, track it, because I learned the hard way. Silence isn't safe, but neither is pretending you can't hear what's already in the room.